Frank Stephenson, good to see
Hello.
you, man.
How are you? Good to see you again.
Chief designer of McLaren Automotive, right?
Yep, that's it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So we were obviously in front of the latest thing that you brought here to Pebble Beach, and you guys have a long history of Pebble Beach. I mean, long-ish. You launched the MP412C here,
Yep.
right? A couple
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah, we did that. It was actually our first time at Pebble Beach, but what a fantastic event.
Yeah.
Of course, Pebble is the place to be. It's like Mecca. You got to get there once in your life. Problem is, once you're here, you can't not come back. So we're going to be here for quite a while.
And it's interesting because yellow is not a color you would associate with Pebble Beach,
well,
except for people's pants.
Yeah, but you know, yellow and green look wonderful together. And if you look at that paint,
interesting. You should mention. Talk about motorsports heritage with McLaren.
Yeah.
This has a very significant.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a bit with Ayrton Senna's helmet colors that he used to race with, and there's always a bit of green inside of that yellow, that sort of a microspheric metallic sort of green balls in there that look really good. So.
Well, is that how you get that? How do you
yeah,
get
it's not actually a flake. That's the interesting thing about it. With metallics, you get lots of light back from when you strike a metallic flake. But we use these really, really fine microspheres. They're actually like green chrome balls. So what you get is this very fine, a metallic will throw back a lot of light, a sphere will throw back just a pinpoint of light, so it's a really fine look to it. So you get this sort of green shade or green tone around it, which is really beautiful.
And it looks like the Brazilian flag a little bit, right?
Absolutely, that's the reason for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about designing a convertible and a coupe. Did you do them at the same time? Is that something that you guys had?
There's always a certain stage where you go through the coupe and then you have to get it sorted towards feasibility. Then you can start concentrating on a bit of the other variants. And of course, the Spider is an obvious variant for this car, mostly obviously because of the carbon fiber tub. The whole thing about cabrios, when you build them, you get this thing called scuttle shake, where it gets a little bit of flex and all that. And companies says it's the internal trick is to find out how to reduce that. And obviously, one of the ways is to add stiffness to the tub or to the actual chassis and platform. So what they end up doing is adding weight to the car, which, okay, you're riding a cabrio, so you're probably not worried about all-out performance. But like our mantra is basically weight is the enemy. So we do everything we can to make sure that the weight is really reduced to the minimum. With a carbon fiber tub, you have absolutely no reason to add weight to it because the inherent qualities of stiffness are there. So all we really had to do was add the minimal weight of the roof mechanism, which is about 40 kilos. Everybody has to use that unless you don't have a roof, basically.
Right.
So that 40 kilos is in there in the equation. So that's really the only added weight that we have to put into the car. So
in this case, even with the top up, the top doesn't actually add any extra torsional.
It's not
stiffness?
needed. No, not needed at all. Where the car actually starts to actually bend is down in the rocker panel area.
Yeah.
And like I said, with that carbon tub, there's absolutely 100% stiffness still in there.
So, any other major differences between this and the coupe?
Lots. What, you guys cut the roof off and it's completely another car?
Yeah, no problem.
No, there is, I mean, obviously you want to, first of all, have to settle that decision whether it's going to be a rag top for the purists or a hard top. And if you do a hard top, where do you split it? What are the advantages of doing it here and there? So we got through the issue, first of all, with the hard top and the rag top, soft top. Simply, I mean, there are a lot of advantages these days. Anybody can cut into a cabrio and get in there. Not necessarily the most important factor to get in there, but you do have a lot more of a clean look when you do get the polished color on there and making it look really slick. Another factor is if you can actually jackknife that roof together, really compress it really tight, then you can get it into the back boot area in a fashion that actually amplifies the storage in what we call ZET, from bottom to top. So that becomes a very usable space for luggage. And we took advantage of that, made some bespoke luggage that would actually fit into that space when you have the roof closed. So you're adding what is actually 52 liters more of space in the car. One of the important factors, obviously, is that you want to be able to show the engine in a supercar. It's one of the emotional factors in there. Yeah. Granted, you're not showing a huge amount of the engine, but you're actually showing a bit of the heart, which is kind of cool. It's like wearing the Zeus, you know.
Right.
It's sexy. And the other advantage, obviously, with this is that you sometimes get caught out on the freeway and you don't want to pull over, but you start to notice it's raining and you don't want to ticket because obviously you go faster, less rain is going to come in.
Yeah.
So you just slow down to about 30K or 19 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, and you can still operate the roof. So that's a very, very good advantage to it.
Your background, you've designed some pretty iconic cars, and people know you pretty well because as we were walking up here, you know, you have a lot of fans.
Thanks.
And so, I mean, just to name a few, I mean, it's the Ferrari F430, the new Mini Cooper, Fiat 500,
FXX Ferrari, the Super Enzo, the Maserati MC12, the Maserati Grand Sport, BMW X5. A few other cars.
A couple others.
Got to write them down.
So that's the past.
Yeah.
But in the future, you know, is it getting harder or easier to design cars? Or you're just sort of.
You know, I really, really hate it when people say, you know, pedestrian regulations force us to put this bonnet hood up in the air, and we're really sorry it looks like this, but we had no choice. What a load of crock, or whatever you want to say.
Right.
Because, I mean, it costs absolutely the same amount of money to make a car look ugly as it does to make it look beautiful. And, of course, legislation is a factor, but that's what car design and car designers are all about. You know, it's a challenge. You got to get around that. Obviously, you know, if you ask me for my list of most favorite cars in the world, probably, you know, 75% of them would be around 1950s, 1960s, when artists and designers were commonly known as, you know, those were the car designers. People actually got to produce a piece of art as a car, and, you know, to heck with the guy who actually wanted to stand in front of it, you know, tempt it. So they didn't have as much legislation, so you were able to get really gorgeous designs out of that. But the design language changes all the time. We're up there, they pay us to come up with new ideas anyway, so we're not going to ever be stuck in the past. Especially a company like McLaren. So what we're actually doing is pushing the envelopes of design. And I guarantee you in the future, you know, even with all this legislation, the new languages for McLaren, design language that we're sort of starting to instill, because we don't really have a past with a real huge design emphasis, you will get to see very, very innovative looking cars that actually look to die for.
Yeah.
So a lot of the influence obviously is not coming from just aesthetics, because it's very easy to design a sexy car or, you know, a dramatic looking car. That's not what design for me is all about. It's more about doing efficient design that has a reason for being. And I've spoken a lot about biomimicry, and, you know, nobody's ever designed a cheetah or a beautiful horse or a fish or whatever. It's all evolved to look absolutely efficient, and within that reason there is why they look so great. So that's kind of the design language we're going to be putting into the future, is just very, very efficient looking cars.
That was an interesting, I remember I saw you speak once about that. You were talking about how nature is the best designer.
Sure.
And you know, how do you incorporate those sort of organic, natural designs into a piece of manufactured metal?
It's curiosity, I would say, because, you know, we're not really discovering anything new out there. Everything that's out there is out there. It's not like something new is going to come into the universe and give us the whole solution to car design. So it basically is just curiosity and a bit of interest in what efficient design is all about. And realistically, if you do go into the you know, the animal kingdom or things like that, you do find incredible examples of efficient design, the most incredible examples out there. I mean, they've outlived us, they've been here forever, and why have they? You know, I did mention once about getting really inspired by a sailfish, and the reason for that was because why does a sailfish go faster in water than a cheetah on land? You know, it's way over 80 miles an hour. Well, a cheetah can't break much over 70. So there are a lot of reasons for a sailfish. You can easily apply the scale design on a sailfish to the areas on an engine duct area where you have to get the most efficient flow of air into the engine and maximize that efficiency. We got high-powered engines, like, you know, athletes that need a lot of air coming into them. Yeah. So if you use that concept of scales to improve the efficiency of air coming in, it sounds daft, a bit funny, but actually it does scientifically work. Aerodynamics, Peregrine Falcon, for example, it's not the fastest bird, but it definitely is the fastest bird when it goes into the dive over 200 miles an hour. Yeah. Why does it do that? Well, it changes its shape in a way that you would not expect. Its wings actually go forward, then backwards. Membranes cover the eyeballs and all the nostril area, so you get no airflow going into the actual, I mean, of course it'd blow up otherwise, but if you can actually do that, you go reduce the drag ratio and actually help improve the performance of the car. So a lot of those factors mean covering up intakes that we don't need at those high speeds. Yeah. So all those principles start to work. For lightweight, if you look at bones in the animal kingdom, a very tight animals, and that the bone structure is absolutely amazing. It looks light, like it would break, except it's actually even stronger than any other way that could be designed. So they have sort of a chaotic looking bone structure. So a lot of that principle can be used into the chassis development for increasing rigidity, but actually at the same time losing weight.
So we've seen a couple of different frontiers being broken in automotive, right?
Yeah.
So the horsepower wars have been the latest
Sure.
kind of big thing that everybody's been doing. Just keep, we're up to Ferraris with 700 horsepower, and the next, I don't know whatever the next McLaren is going to be, will probably have a fairly high horsepower.
Yeah.
What about other frontiers? Well, what about for you, what's the next frontier other than that in the modern car?
I mean, everybody wants to personalize their car. The last thing you do when you buy a supercar is to want to have somebody parked next to you or up the stoplight, you look over and you see the car and you think, well, what's he spec his out to be? But wouldn't it be cool if you could actually personalize your car? And there are ways of doing it, believe it or not, but you could be driving a car that's yellow on Monday and volcanic red on Tuesday, and another car like that. You simply look at, it sounds far-fetched, I know, but it is, like I said, possible. You can use the principles of a chameleon to change colors of an object, sort of adapt the color to what you feel like on that day. So you don't get stuck with the life of the car being a certain color. There are a lot of different tricks you can do with paint to have not only pearlescence but candies and all that, but even going further to completely change the effect. I think materials are going to be a huge thing. A lot of times in the interior of the car, it's like at night, you don't recognize the interior of the car, which is okay. You can have some little glow lights around like that and show off some nice areas. But wouldn't it be cool to have an interior that you recognize? Maybe it's lit up a little bit like the materials absorb energy, sunlight during the day, and they actually put out this little, sort of like a star system or something where you see little speckles of light everywhere on the interior, and it does mark out or bring out the shapes of the interior, so it's appreciated as well as night. I think electronics are going to be a huge thing in the future, not only for helping the driver aids, of course, make it a bit more safe, but also I think with electronics we're going to get a lot more into personal passenger entertainment, communication connections, connecting yourself to the outside world a lot better, connecting yourself with the car next to you so you avoid each other, whatever. So there's a lot of technology going on like that. There's also a lot of technology going into the road systems to make it driving a lot more simpler, a lot safer, a lot more comfortable, depending on how you like to drive. The engine propulsion systems, I'm not sure hybrid is actually the future. Maybe it's a temporary stop or a gap stop.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to be looking at something in the future that is actually a lot more revolutionary than lugging around some batteries to produce some electrical energy that has needed a lot more other things to get that energy there. So, but we will be looking at a lot of new propulsion systems in the future. I think braking is going to be a huge thing. We already use it, for example, to recharge and get some extra power, but there's a lot more other things you can do with that kind of energy. Active aerodynamics are going to be very interesting because it means that potentially the shape of the car could change at different speeds according to what you want it to look like, or what
shape in terms of the action. Instead of not, you have active aero, you have a wing pop up, but you mean the actual shape.
No,
of the car.
there's different materials that have memory, so you can charge the materials, positive, negative, very easily, and you can actually make the material expand or contract or go back to its original position, which helps not just to change the car aesthetically, obviously, but to actually change it efficiently for different reasons why you would want to change the car.
That's, I mean, materials to me has always been just, can we make it lighter? I mean, so one of your competitors is here with a car, Lamborghini's here, and they've made a big deal over pairing up with carbon fiber technologists and producers. Is carbon fiber going to be a mass production material?
Well, one of the advantages we have, of course, it's been in our philosophy for a long time. So we've been able to sort of, by sheer volume and sheer investigation, and all that, with prices of materials and stuff, bring down the cost. So that's one of the factors of being able to introduce a supercar, not a hypercar, but a supercar with a carbon fiber tub, is unique in the market. But we've been able to reduce it to a cost-effective level, which is absolutely fabulous. I can imagine that cascading even further down to having city cars where you're sending off, your child to university first year. You want her to be safe, or him safe. You want to send your wife out to do the shopping. You wrap them up in carbon fiber. They're pretty safe. So that's the reason why a lot of people in race cars, these days they get out after 200 mile an hour impact and go, wow, I got a headache.
Right.
But I think the other thing with weight, not only is that, we've got many more technologies that are even further advanced than carbon fiber. Carbamide, which is actually a powdered carbon, which is absolutely stiff, very high cost now, but it's basically a powder that's been kind of compressed and SLA'd, stereolithographied, and you can make things that are absolutely stiff, which we use in aerodynamics on Formula One, so that we get absolutely no flex in the panels, the aero panels. Simple, crazy things like, what's the oldest thing that's been on a car since cars have been invented? Windscreen wipers. Why the heck do we need windscreen wipers? It's not rain necks or whatever you put on the screen,
right,
because that's not what they do with military aircraft. And if you do look at military aircraft, none of them are running around with windscreen wipers, and those are, what, 35 million, I don't know, dollars, and they're not going to wreck a plane just because he can't see out of the windscreen.
Right.
Imagine the worst possible situation of an aircraft, military aircraft coming in for a landing on the aircraft carrier, pitch black, bad weather, the ship's rocking, the plane's rocking, 100 meters or 100 yards before he's supposed to land, he runs into a flock of seagulls, and you get a bit of the blood and guts thing going on. He's not going to be risking that airplane for just a simple occasion like that. So what they have is a system involved where it absolutely lets nothing stick to the glass. And that technology exists, we could introduce it. The problem is we'd probably put out of work the guys who do the windshield wiper fluids and the wiper blades. And that would put some people out of work, but there is a way to get around that.
So the arms race in automotive is
the windscreen arms?
Is there a windscreen arms race? So the technology arms race isn't just lightness, is what I was saying. Because it seems that lightness is really the next frontier, but you're saying that there's a lot of other frontiers.
Lightness. Why are we looking for light cars? Basically because it's a power to weight ratio that's absolutely the ultimate deciding factor. So and nobody wants to. I mean, you can even see, like I said, when we discussed the horsepower race, those cars that are putting out 1,000 horsepower, it's all about getting it to be effective. You can build a dragster engine in the back of it, but you need that car to turn, you need it to handle well. There's a lot of things that come into play there. So if you don't need that amount of horsepower, well, how are you going to get the cars to do what you want them to do as a supercar? So basically you reduce the weight. So, and then the cars need less horsepower to drive the car efficiently. So, it's not just decreasing horsepower, decreasing weight. It's all about what effects do they all have in common. And obviously, if you can get a very super lightweight car with a very small engine, you're using less resources. You get the car to be a lot less costly. It's not a hidden fact that Formula One cars are too costly at the moment, or any of these high expensive racing series. So it's all about reducing costs and everything. So it's just the way the world works. If you can make it cheaper and sell it well, and everybody stays happy.